Hey there. Thanks for stopping by. Before we dive into today's story, let me know where you're watching from and how this video makes you feel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I still remember the way Marcos looked at the boy in the cafe that afternoon. He stopped mid-sentence, eyes locked on something, or someone, beyond the glass window. His mouth hung slightly open. For a moment, he looked haunted. I followed his gaze, expecting to see something alarming, but all I saw was a child seated at a corner table, dipping a cookie into his hot chocolate. Harmless, ordinary. Except, Marcos couldn't stop staring. "What's wrong?" I asked, setting down my iced tea. "You look like you've seen a ghost." He blinked slowly and swallowed hard, his fingers curling around his phone. "Renata," he said quietly, "that boy looks exactly like Thiago." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt ridiculous. "You mean he has curly hair and a round face? Lots of kids look like each other." Marcos shook his head. "No, not like that." He was already unlocking his phone, scrolling frantically through his photos. "I mean identical, like a copy." I watched him, my smile fading. His hands trembled slightly as he turned the screen toward me. I leaned forward, my breath caught in my throat. The photo on the screen wasn't of Thiago, and yet it was. Same warm brown eyes, same lopsided grin, same tiny mole beneath the left cheekbone. It wasn't a resemblance, it was a reflection. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse beginning to thrum beneath my skin. "Who is this?" I whispered. "His name's Raphael. His father's a new client. We met earlier today. He showed me a picture of his son, and I couldn't breathe. I asked him when the photo was taken. He said last week." I stared at the image again, desperate to find something. Anything that proved this was just a bizarre coincidence. But the more I looked, the less I could deny it. My voice was tight. "Where was Raphael born?" Marcos hesitated. I didn't ask. "Ask." He nodded slowly and stood. "Wait here." I sat frozen as he stepped outside and made the call. Through the glass, I watched his body tense as he spoke. He turned back after a minute, eyes wide. "Hospital São Bento," he said. I felt the air leave my lungs. "That's where Thiago was born." He nodded. I swallowed hard. "And when's Raphael's birthday?" Marcos didn't answer right away. His silence was answer enough. I already knew. "Same day," he said finally. "Same hour." I pressed my hands to my mouth, eyes burning. The noise of the cafe faded into a dull hum. I turned slowly to look at Thiago, sitting at our usual corner, coloring in his book, unaware. My boy, my entire world. But suddenly a question I'd never imagined myself asking whispered through my mind. What if he wasn't mine? The car ride home felt endless. Marcos kept one hand on the wheel, the other tapping nervously against his thigh. I stared out the window, watching the city blur into streaks of light and color. But my mind was stuck, looping through one image, one impossible thought. Thiago or Raphael. I closed my eyes. It didn't help. I could still see them both. Identical. Perfectly, terrifyingly identical. "What are you thinking?" Marcos asked gently. I didn't answer right away. "That this can't be real." "I know, but it is." He didn't argue. At home, Thiago ran ahead of us, tossing his shoes by the door and heading straight for the kitchen. He called out something about wanting juice, completely unaware that his parents had just had the ground ripped out from beneath them. Marcos and I sat at the table, the silence stretching. "Call him," I said at last. "The father, Raphael's dad. We need to talk to him, face to face." Marcos hesitated, but he knew I was right. He pulled out his phone again. His hands were steadier this time. Maybe because once you fall through one layer of disbelief, you stop resisting the next. He dialed. The voice that answered was deep, calm, unaware. "Mr. Duarte," Marcos began. "I know this sounds insane, but we need to talk about your son. In person. It's important." A pause. Then, "All right, I'm listening." We agreed to meet at a small park near the waterfront the next afternoon. Neutral ground. That night, after Thiago was asleep, I sat on the edge of his bed and just watched him. His chest rose and fell in soft, even rhythm. His lashes rested against his cheeks. His small hand curled around his stuffed turtle, the one he'd named Chico when he was 3. My eyes burned. He was mine, in every way that mattered. And yet, I stood and left the room, closing the door gently behind me. Marcos was waiting in the hallway. "I couldn't sleep," I murmured. "Me neither." We stood in silence for a long time. "What if?" I began, but my voice caught. He shook his head. "Let's just meet them. That's all we're doing right now." "Right. Just a meeting, just a conversation. But nothing about this felt simple. Nothing about this felt safe. The next day, the sun came out like nothing was wrong. The waterfront park was quiet, the kind of peaceful that didn't match the storm building inside me. Marcos parked the car and turned off the engine. "They're already here," he said quietly. I followed his gaze. Across the lawn, a couple stood near a wooden bench. The man, tall and broad-shouldered, held the hand of a boy with dark curls. The woman next to him had one arm wrapped around herself, the other clutching a water bottle like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Raphael. Even from a distance, I felt my breath hitch. He turned toward us, and it was like watching Thiago in another body. Same curious tilt of the head, same uneven smile. The world around me felt suddenly surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. "Ready?" Marcos asked. "No," I whispered. But I stepped out of the car anyway. Thiago clung to my hand as we crossed the grass. He was humming under his breath, dragging his sneakers lazily, completely oblivious. I didn't know whether to shield him from this or let him walk into it with open eyes. The couple turned as we approached. The man stepped forward. "Marcos?" Marcos nodded, his grip on my hand tightening. "I'm João," the man said. "This is my wife, Camila. And this," he looked down at the boy, "is Raphael." Camila's eyes flicked between Thiago and Raphael. I could see the moment it hit her. Her lips parted, her knees nearly buckled. She looked like she was about to be sick. I knelt next to Thiago. "Sweetheart, do you want to play over there for a bit?" I pointed to the playground. Thiago looked at Raphael, then back at me. "Can he come too?" I hesitated, then nodded. The boys took off like they'd known each other forever. We sat on the bench in silence, all four of us watching them. They climbed, laughed, chased each other. My stomach churned with every shared gesture, every mirrored habit. It was like watching two halves of the same soul. Camila was the first to speak. "He looks so much like Raphael did at that age." Marcos cleared his throat. "Thiago was born at Hospital São Bento, June 4th, around 9:45 a.m. João blinked. "That's Raphael's birthday. Same time, same place." No one said the word, but we were all thinking it. Switched. Camila let out a broken breath. I remember being so exhausted after delivery. Everything was a blur. I didn't even hold him for the first few hours. They said they needed to run some routine checks. I looked at her, my heart clenching. I held Thiago Raphael first. I remember the way he looked at me like he knew me already. João raked a hand through his hair. "We need to do a DNA test." "Yes," Marco said quietly. "We already called a lab." The silence that followed was filled only by the sound of two little boys laughing in the distance. "I don't want to lose him," Camila whispered, her voice cracked. "Raphael is my son." "I understand," I said, and I meant it, because Thiago, no matter what any test said, was mine too. The email came on a rainy Thursday morning. I saw it flash across my phone screen just as I was buckling Thiago's shoes. My breath caught. Marcos looked at me. "Is that it?" I nodded, unable to speak. I handed him the phone. My hands were shaking. He opened the message, his brow furrowing as he scrolled. His lips parted, then closed again. For a moment, the room was dead silent. "It's true," he finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "Raphael is ours, biologically." I had expected the words. I had even rehearsed how I might feel. But nothing prepares you for the moment. A truth like that lands inside your body. I sat down hard on the edge of the couch, the world tilting beneath me. Across the room, Thiago was humming a song about dinosaurs. I covered my mouth with both hands, blinking fast. Marcos sat beside me, putting an arm around my shoulders, but the weight of it did nothing to anchor me. "What now?" I whispered. "We call them." The conversation with João and Camila was quiet, heavy, full of pauses and unsaid emotions, but it ended with agreement. We would meet again. That evening. When they arrived, Raphael clung to Camila's side, shy and sleepy. Thiago ran to greet him with a grin, pulling him toward the toy shelf. The boys played like they'd known each other forever. We sat down at the dining table, the same place we had celebrated Thiago's last birthday, the same table where we had placed his drawings and macaroni crafts. João was the first to speak. "I thought confirmation would bring clarity, but it just makes this harder." Camila nodded. "I look at Raphael and still see my baby, but now I look at Thiago and I see something I never let myself imagine." I swallowed hard. "It's the same for us." No one said it, but we all felt it. There was no easy answer. I don't want to disrupt their lives, Marcos said softly. But I also don't want them to grow up wondering why no one told them the truth. We need time, João said, to think, to process, maybe talk to someone professionally. We all agreed. That night, after everyone had gone, I stood at Thiago's doorway and watched him sleep. He looked peaceful, one hand curled beneath his cheek, the same way he had slept since he was a baby. I didn't feel like I had lost a child, but I knew I had found another. The air in the car was thick with silence as we drove back from the clinic. Thiago kicked his feet rhythmically against the back seat, humming to himself. Marcos's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, and I could feel my own hands shaking despite being folded tightly in my lap. We didn't speak. What was there to say? The result had been clear. Unforgiving. I stared out the window, the streets of Porto Alegre passing by in a blur. The buildings, the trees, the families walking their dogs, everything looked the same. But nothing felt the same. When we got home, Thiago ran into the living room asking if he could watch his favorite cartoon. I nodded numbly, trying to keep my smile steady as he plopped down on the couch. As soon as he was distracted, I turned to Marcos. We need to talk to them. He didn't argue. He didn't even blink. That evening, João and Camila came over. The moment they stepped into our home, I saw Camila's eyes drift to the photos on the wall. Birthday parties, first steps, Christmas mornings. She looked like she was trying to memorize every image. We sat at the table, the same table where we had planned Thiago's 4th birthday, where we'd spilled juice and told bedtime stories. Now it felt like a courtroom. João cleared his throat. We know what the test says, but we also know what our hearts say. Camila reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo, Rafael as a baby, wrapped in a blue blanket. I recognized the blanket. It was the same brand the hospital used. She passed it to me, and I studied the tiny face. I didn't recognize him, and yet I did, like something deep inside me had always known. I don't want to take Thiago from you, Camila said gently, but I want to know Rafael, our Rafael. Marcos's voice was quiet but firm. So do we. Silence settled again, not tense, just hollow. I looked at João, his expression unreadable. Do we tell them? He blinked. The boys? I nodded. Camila shook her head slowly. They're too young, they won't understand. But eventually they'll ask, I whispered. They'll see the photos, the timeline, and they'll wonder. Marcos reached for my hand beneath the table. We don't need to answer everything tonight. Let's take it one day at a time. João nodded. Agreed. We didn't make any final decisions that night. Just promises. We'd take it slow. Let the boys keep playing. Let them keep laughing. We'd figure out what came next together. After they left, I stood in the hallway, staring at the framed photo of Thiago's first day of school. He was wearing his backpack upside down, smiling like the world belonged to him. He still smiled like that, and no DNA test could take that from me. Days passed. We didn't call each other. We didn't visit. We didn't do anything except try to pretend like life hadn't just come undone. Thiago still woke up before sunrise and tiptoed into our room, whispering good morning like it was our secret. He still asked for toast with butter and strawberry jam. He still begged to wear his superhero socks even when they didn't match his outfit. In every possible way, he was still ours. But deep down, I felt the divide growing between what I knew and what I wished I didn't. Marcos tried to stay strong. He took longer hours at the restaurant, poured his focus into work, but every time I looked at him, I saw it. The exhaustion, the guilt, the grief neither of us had figured out how to name. It wasn't until the weekend that I finally caved. We were at the market, walking past a row of vendors, when I saw a little boy reach for the exact same candy Thiago loved, chocolate-covered guava cubes. But it wasn't the candy that made my breath catch. It was his laugh. I turned and saw him, Rafael, with João. Our eyes met. João gave me a soft nod, an almost smile, like he'd been hoping we'd run into each other. Rafael tugged at his hand, waving at Thiago, who had already spotted him and was running across the market like gravity didn't apply. The boys collided in a hug so natural, so familiar, I felt the ground shift again beneath me. João walked over slowly. I'm glad we saw you, he said. Camila? She's been having a hard time. I nodded. Me too. We didn't talk long, just enough to decide. The boys needed each other, whether we were ready or not. So we started with the bridge. Every Sunday we'd meet there, halfway between our homes, 1 hour of playground chaos, laughter, juice boxes, and cautious conversation. The first time I brought a book but didn't read a word. I just watched them. Watched the way Raphael squinted when he was focused. The way Thiago shared his snacks without hesitation. Camila arrived late, sunglasses hiding red eyes, but she smiled when Raphael ran to her. "I can't believe they're not brothers," she whispered as we watched them race up the slide together. "They are," I replied. She looked at me, startled. "They're just not the kind we expected." Camila let out a shaky breath and nodded. "One step at a time," I smiled, heart heavy and hopeful all at once. "One step at a time." 3 months passed. The Sundays at the bridge turned into shared dinners, school pickups, holiday crafts. We built something strange and fragile together, an arrangement not quite defined by language or law, only by love. Thiago now knew Raphael by name, not just as a playmate, but as something more. He didn't ask questions about why Raphael looked like him. Kids see magic before they see mystery. All they knew was that being together felt right. But for us adults, the weight hadn't lifted. It had simply shifted, repositioned across our shoulders, shared. One evening, as the boys were building a pillow fort in our living room, Camila sat beside me with a mug of tea, her fingers tracing the rim. "We got the call today," she said quietly. "A counselor from the hospital. They've reviewed the case." My heart stopped. And they confirmed it. Hospital error. The nurse in charge retired 2 years ago. No formal notes, but enough to confirm negligence. I stared at my hands, my voice barely audible. "So what now?" She looked up at me, eyes brimming but steady. "Now we stop waiting for someone to fix it for us." Marcos and João joined us, and we talked, really talked, for the first time without fear gripping our words. That night, we made a decision. We wouldn't exchange custody. We wouldn't draw lines. We would raise both boys. Together. 2 homes, shared birthdays, summer vacations split evenly. Teacher meetings attended by all 4 of us. Not a broken family, a rebuilt one. The paperwork would come later, the legal guardianship adjustments, but in the only court that mattered, our sons' hearts, we were already united. That weekend, we took a photo. Both boys standing side by side in the bridge park. Thiago wore his superhero socks. Raphael held a juice box with 2 straws. All 4 of us behind them, laughing into the wind. When I look at that photo now, I don't see a tragedy. I see a beginning, and sometimes beginnings come from the places we fear most.